I'm Dave. Welcome to my shop. Tonight is Shop Talk, and I've got my co-host Glenn with me here. Unless you suspect nepotism, don't let it bother you that Glenn and I went to high school, and he was subscriber number 3 on the channel, I think it was. So he's seen some things, some really early things. But now this is not really news because it's probably a week old, but Linus Tech Tips got hacked, their Twitter account.
Wow.
And that's a pretty big Twitter account, I imagine. I don't know how many followers he has, but I mean, he has something like well over 10 million subscribers on YouTube. So whatever it is on Twitter, I'm sure it's an important account. But apparently it was a standard email scam. He was like at a pool party or something. So he was busy and he got the pop-up on his phone that somebody from Russia has logged into your Twitter account. Is this you? And so naturally he goes, well, hell no, that's not me. And I think at that step, I'm not 100% sure, but then I think it asks, okay, well, enter your credentials to prove it's you, and then we'll block this other user, to which he did, but then they've got his credentials. And so, of course, that was not the real Twitter page. It was some hacker's page. And they then used those credentials to go in and change his 2FA and his password and everything else so he couldn't get back in. Then I guess you're at the mercy of Twitter and trying to post something on Twitter and hope they notice. And again, it's a bigger account, so he's going to get a faster response than I would. I'd be barking in the dark for a couple of weeks, I imagine, before anybody noticed. But
timing is everything. Hey, hit him at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Or the right time, I guess.
So apparently once they got the account taken over, they set up some kind of laptop scam where you could get a free laptop by just sending them Bitcoin. I don't know who falls for that, but I would suspect something was weird if Linus started charging Bitcoin for free laptops. But yeah, some people apparently.
Yeah.
Because he responded within minutes, but I guess, it took a while for Twitter to, or X, I guess we should call it now.
Yeah.
And this is, it's a broader problem because I'm not giving Linus a hard time here because it could happen to me at any point, especially they got hacked. I don't know if it was last year or this year, but somebody that had authorization to their YouTube account downloaded a piece of malware that hijacked all of their session cookies. And once you grab somebody's session cookies off the local machine, you can bypass two-factor authentication and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty traumatic and scary for him.
So did he get stung twice by the same thing? Or
no, it's two different styles of attack. One is a piece of malware. Like somebody sends you, hey, here's the PDF for the contract on the promotion we're going to do with the channel. Please review it. So the guy doesn't look closely, double clicks it, and it's really an exe with a PDF icon.
Right.
And then it runs as a package.
But the second attack through X or Twitter, where he entered his credentials to prove it wasn't him, and then that led to this Bitcoin piece?
Yeah. Once they had taken over the account, that's what they did with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know somebody close to me about a year ago, they had a message come in saying, whoops, my phone's going to ding occasionally, apparently. I don't know how to turn that off at the moment. So somebody I know got the notification from PayPal, apparently, that your eBay account has been used to purchase some large item. Confirm if this was you or not. And then, so she gets in touch with the link on the thing, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to send you a 4-digit code to make sure it's really you. And what they do at that point is they go and do the password challenge on the website to change your password, and it sends you the 4-digit code. They get the 4-digit code from you, and then they're able to unlock it and change your password.
Wow.
So that's one to warn your relatives about, which is the never give out that 4-digit code or 6-digit code or whatever it is.
Yeah, which was going to be my comment when they got Linus. It's like, he's not your typical, grandma sitting at home or your mom and dad.
Right.
But gosh, if you are a mom and dad or a grandma, or you've got one, you want to give them some heads up on this stuff because it's pretty sharp and easy to fall for. If they got Linus, they can get anybody.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So what else is going on? I guess there's been a lot of excitement over Ryzen CPU benchmarks. A new set of CPUs came out from AMD, and they're performing about the same as the old ones. But then it turns out that this is sort of a Windows issue. Yeah, I'm always a little biased, you can imagine, but I wanted to find out. So I was talking to some guys at Microsoft about what's going on here. And I haven't heard this theory expounded elsewhere. I don't know that it's 100% true, but this was the conjecture from the old timers that had previously worked on this stuff. It was that when the Spectre and Meltdown mitigations went in, essentially what happened was they take kernel memory and they move it so that if you're in user memory, you don't know where in kernel memory space the kernel is. So you can't just go in and hack it and patch things and do attacks. But if you're administrator, they don't do that level of obfuscation because you're administrator. You could get it anyway.
Right.
And it turns out that that layer of mitigation that they added for Spectre and Meltdown broke a certain style of branch prediction on the AMD chips, which is worth about 8% of performance, it sounds like, or up to about 8%. So they're coming with a fix in 24H2. So it will be fixed shortly, which will be probably a nice relief to people that bought those CPUs and were hoping for bigger jumps than they got anyway.
Yeah. And then there'll be new benchmarks set after that to confirm.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, a lot of people have been redoing the benchmarks as administrator.
Right.
And then there's some concern because if you go back to the older chips and do that, they also get a boost. So now how much of this performance improvement is really from the new chip versus doing that process?
Yeah. Yeah. You got no AMDs in your inventory, do you?
Actually, I do. I've got a 5950, and then everything else is Threadrippers.
Right. Yeah.
And I know they are Ryzen cores.
Oh, yeah.
I don't honestly know if the Threadripper is impacted. That's a good question. I'd expect it probably should be and will be fixed.
And I suspect you'll find out within the next 24 hours because you'll look into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got two Threadripper 59 or 7995 WXs here, but they're both, one is running Proxmox as a hypervisor, and then one is running Windows as a hypervisor. So the Windows one could be impacted.
Is that HP machine?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The big box boy.
Yeah. So we did an episode a couple of days ago on the Living Computer Museum.
Yes.
Living Computers Museum. I always say computer singular, but it's Living Computers Museum here in Seattle because Paul Allen passed away, as you likely know, and then the museum went through COVID and it never reopened. And so apparently there was no provision made in his will for it, and the heirs weren't interested in continuing it, and nobody stepped up to buy the whole thing as a unit. And I don't know if they tried to just donate the whole thing to another museum or what, but basically it's being sold off. And so Christie's is handling the auction of the higher end pieces and stuff. And people are unhappy, I think, with the situation. And it caused a few people to take it out on me because I'm kind of the messenger. And I think to some people I was part of the problem because I would actually buy some of those systems if I could get a hold of them, if the right ones came up. And so instead of being in a museum, it's going to be in my shop if I buy something. And now I have a shop museum, but of course it's not public. And I think I mentioned in the video, I don't have generational wealth, so it's not going to be preserved forever. It's just until I'm either done with them or I die, and then they get sold on eBay at some point or whatever happens. And I agree, it would be much nicer to have them all centralized in the museum with a dedicated team of people working on them and fixing them. But that's not the reality. So
right. Yeah, no one's stepping up to keep the collection together.
I do feel sorry for the people that donated stuff to the museum, and we're expecting that it has a permanent home, only to find out that no, it's not permanent anymore.
Yeah,
and a lot of people volunteered their time to fix and maintain the hardware on the presumption that this was for the museum, and now it's for the greater benefit of the charity that benefits from the sale of the items. So
yeah,
I mean, it's still going for charity, but it's not the same as having the museum open. So.
Yeah, I know one thing for sure, that forever is a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And you put work into something under that assumption, and then you find out that forever isn't as long as you thought it was.
Yeah, it's hard not to feel a little taken advantage of, I'm sure. So
yeah, that'd be disappointing for a lot of folks for sure.
I got my first piece of hate mail over it. So
yeah.
Well, the first one in a long time since like the Usenet days or something.
Yeah, or first one so far. Yeah.
Yeah. There'll be others, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Part of what got this guy riled up was the way we handled the PDP 1134 when we first got it. In that, we just did some quick tests on the power supply, fixed the contactor, plugged it in, turned it on, and see what worked. And my approach has always been with most hardware, if there's nothing obviously wrong, clean it up, plug it in, find out what works, and fix what doesn't.
Yeah.
Not everybody agrees with that approach. Some people are a lot more systemic, and they'll go through and rebuild maybe they'll change out capacitors in the power supply or whatever. So that irritated this fellow. And then his other primary argument was that I was clout chasing.
Oh, yes.
For the dopamine rush, which is kind of an interesting take on a channel dedicated to assembly language and PDP 11s. It's not like I'm Andrew Tate out here rocking it for Hustler University, but
we did look like a couple of prairie boys from Regina kind of playing with the big machine, but the intentions were not ill at all. And again, I think that's what this sort of shop talk thing is nice. It gives you a chance to sort of respond to some of that stuff in a way that's more.
Yeah, it's not worth making an episode over, but it's nice to have a place to address it. So
yeah. And again, the intention was not anything but trying to. I mean, your intention from the start of that, and still is, to get that thing fully, completely operational.
Yeah, it's a little ironic because I counted that I have 15 systems from before 1980, and everyone is fully working, except for the disk drives in the PDP 1134, which is what this guy was going to initially help me with.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well,
maybe there's someone else out there who has that knowledge and they're willing to extend some assistance. So, yeah.
Well, the good news is I blew up a lot of stuff, so my tech bench is deep and talented. So,
well, we saw that other piece where you built basically a PDP 11 out of your tickle trunk. So, yeah.
I built the second one today. Actually, I built another one. I built a PDP 11. Actually, it's a micro PDP 1183.
Yeah.
So it's the full BA23 tower chassis, and then I put in the new 1183 CPU. And I bought a couple of RAM boards recently off eBay, and I want to see if they worked. And they were 512K boards. They both came up as 1 meg total. I've got an 8-port serial board in it. What else did I put in there? An RQD X3 disk and floppy controller, M7504 DEC Ethernet controller. So the whole cage is full now. It's pretty much loaded out with all the spare parts I had to build out a good system. And I was just formatting doing a low-level format on a hard drive. And then we started recording, and it's too loud, so I had to kill it. But
so is this the part where I roll my eyes and say, "Of course, that's what you did today"? Built a PDP
11 today. Of course you did.
Out of the other leftover parts, yeah.
I don't know how I came to have so many parts because nobody's given me anything except Usagi Electric. He sent me some stuff for an 1123 build, and that's that one we demoed for Dave Cutler.
Yeah,
some of the guts in that one, but everything else I've just bought piece by piece on eBay when I see a card that I'm like, I could probably use that one day.
Well, yeah, and some of that stuff you've had for a couple of years is even sort of starting this chase towards some sort of PDP 11, and yet little bits and pieces that, well, if I get one, I might need this. And
the first thing I ever bought was an actual little CPU, the golden K11 CPU, and I've got that up behind me here somewhere. It's too out of focus, but
yeah. Right beside the Sasquatch.
Exactly. That's Bigfoot, not Sasquatch.
Oh, Bigfoot. So, well, yeah, that's right. Bigfoot, yeah.
It's funny because, well, it's not funny. This is a real tangent. But town names in Saskatchewan, where we're both from, are all translated, right? The natives would have called it Swift Current in whatever their language was.
Yeah,
Lakota or Dakota or...
Translated, yeah.
Yeah, so they're all translated now to English. Whereas around here, I live in Sammamish, which is right near Snoqualmie, which is by the Duwamish River. And so all the names are still preserved.
Yeah.
But it comes down to some unfortunate ones in Saskatchewan, like Big Beaver and Climax and weird town names like that I assume are because they're translated badly.
Yeah. And we had a cabin at Canada Valley, which Canada is the native word for village, where Canada is named from as a country. It started as villages, the First Nations describing where they lived, and that's
there was that old one of the
Canada,
CBC vignettes.
Vignettes on CBC, and most of the folks our age or slightly older, maybe a bit younger, would be semi-familiar with that. So.
Yeah, I remember there's the white explorer, the European, comes to the native guy and says basically, "What's this over here?" And he's like, "What? That village?" And he's, "Oh, we live at the village." And Canada.
Canada Con. Yeah.
Because when I lived in Ottawa, that's right near Canada. There's a town that's
Canada, Ontario,
or whatever.
Yeah. Much like the United States, a lot of names get repeated.
Yeah. Springfield, I think, is the most used town name in the U.S. And I think there's like 48 states with a Springfield or something weird like that.
Well, I think that's why Matt Groening picked it for The Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was just a piece that popped up on our Facebook feed. Don't know if you saw it, that Matt Groening is actually from Saskatchewan. His dad was a well-known photographer.
Really?
Yep. His dad was Homer Groening.
Yeah.
Yep. And his mom was his mom Margaret or Madge? Marge?
I believe so.
Yeah, there's a couple of the names, but there's a nice photo of his dad sitting on the side of a highway in Saskatchewan in the 50s with a big camera on a tripod taking pictures. Yeah. Yeah. I was not aware of that connection, but yeah.
No, I'd never heard that. Because there are a number of things that come up in the comments fairly often. So I try to answer them all the time in the comments, but...
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We'll try and sort of scrape some of those comments out, collect them together, perhaps in some sort of topical fashion, or maybe in more of a random fashion, and see what we can do with them. I think the other thing, that sort of the background information on some of the stuff that's going on that doesn't quite make an episode, I think will be of interest to a lot of folks too. So,
yeah, because there's usually a lot of mini topics during the week that I'm thinking, well, that's not worth an episode, but I like to talk about it. So hopefully it'll be a venue for that.
You have your big list of stuff that I think.
Oh, my episode list
stuff. Yeah. So there might be something that you can pull out of there too, and we can sort of.
Yeah, you're right. I will take a look at that.
Pepper that stuff in here as well. I think there's a lot of little tidbits that maybe don't make a 10-minute video or 3-minute or 2-minute, but lots of good conversation. So
save me from doing TikTok.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Anyways.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me tonight, Glenn. And in the meantime and in between time, hope to see you all next time. See you later. This little chair will be waiting for one of you, and a rocking chair for another who likes to rock, and a big armchair for two to curl up in. All next time on Dave's Garage.